So let's talk about the curriculum vitae, its overall layout, individual elements in it, what they are trying to do and show, and what the purpose overall of a curriculum vitae is. So let's just look at an example here. Sorry. Here we are. Right. Now here is a hypothetical one for a student perhaps. And the first thing to say is that the look of it has to be quite nice. It's got to look neatly, consciously planned. And the first thing that should strike you is in fact the name of the person. Do not write your name in small font. This is not the chance to be modest. This is the chance for you to put your name in big letters, but not huge letters, because you've got to tell us some stuff about you. Okay, so I think anyone looking at this, remember what I've just said, that the person looking at it, first and foremost, the first hurdle you've got to overcome is somebody who might be really junior in the HR department, and they're going to make a decision about your career in as little as 5 or 10 seconds. There's a junior person deciding your future in 5 or 10 seconds. So you have got to have laid it out neatly and clearly. So I think one can see, first and foremost, that it's got to be bold and large. It's not too small writing. The worst thing you can have is a piece of paper which is covered from left to right and from top to bottom in nothing but dense small writing. That's just not going to get read. That's a waste of time. So you've got to boil it down. You've got to use a largish font that's visible but still strike a balance between that and containing enough useful, interesting stories about yourself. Now, one of the things that immediately strikes one is that there's a column down the left, and this should be immediately apparent to anyone looking at this CV. And I don't care whether it's down the left or the right. The way you do it is go into Word and set up a table. And the table has just 2 columns, a time one, which is a small, narrow column, and a much wider column, which has all the details about your jobs or education. I don't care whether the time column's on the left or the right. It's up to you. It just happens to look neat. And what you can clearly see from this one is this hand side, so that time column. And that's to anyone, they're going to say, oh yeah, well, this is what they were doing at that time. Okay, so that's got to be recognizable within about 1 second. I'm not joking. If you've only got 7 seconds looking at someone's CV or 10 seconds, they've got to spot that that's the timeline very, very quickly, within 1 second. Okay, so that's why you've got to lay it out really quickly and easily. And then we've got some details on the right-hand side, and they've got to be laid out quite clearly. And you've got to choose every word just right. You know, it's no good. I've had students saying, I can't possibly summarize everything about myself in 2 pages. Yes, you can. Yes, you will. Indeed, you've got to do it in less than 2 pages. You've got to do it in 1 page. Because if you can't do that, you don't have the ability to prioritize. And that's an absolutely key management skill. And therefore, people will say, well, you're a very interesting, clever person or whatever, but you can't prioritize. So, you know, we're not going to you're not much use to us in business. So you've got to be able to do the hard work. You've got to summarize a job that you did for, you know, in my case, 9 years in sort of 8 words. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of a CV? And what you're trying to do is to paint a miniature picture in words that will get you into the interview. That is the one and only purpose of a CV and the cover letter. It is to get you into the interview. If it does that, the job is done. And then after that, that's you in the interview getting yourself the job. Okay. So it's going to contain some necessary facts about you, you know, your qualifications, where you were educated, and some work experience, hopefully. Yeah. Do remember, I have to say this in Europe, we'd never have to say it in America, but in Europe, we do have to say it is a sales brochure. It is the sales brochure for you. So there is nothing negative in it. You don't sort of say, oh, well, I was very lucky to get that job, or I wasn't very good at that job to begin with, or something like that. No, no, no. This is a sales brochure for you. If you saw the sales brochure for a car, and all the experts know, in fact, it's a nice enough car, but the turning circle is not very good at all. You wouldn't find that the poor turning circle is in the sales brochure for that. It's only positive. So this is your sales brochure. So it's only going to be positive about you. There's nothing negative about you in here. Okay. Now, the other thing to note is that this is not going to change. You're going to draft a CV and you're going to put it out with a whole bunch of applications in one go. So the CV is standard. What's going to change are the cover letters, which are going to depend on the particular job that you're going for. But the CV is just bog standard attachment electronically, or literally it used to be stapled together with a paper application. Okay. And then we come to this bit about the skills. You're going to have to be selective about the skills. If you've done a job, even if it was a summer job for, 3 months or 3 weeks, you've learned an awful lot. You had a lot of things that happen. And you've got to be selective about those. And you mustn't miss any key skills that every employer wants, but you must show you can prioritize. And this is, in fact, one way to influence the general direction of your career. By highlighting certain skills, that's going to push you in a certain direction, and because you're more likely to get the jobs using those skills. And this is how we gradually influence our careers and gradually move from one area into another. So that's the purpose of a CV. It is to get you into the interview. Once it's done that, job done. Now, let's look at a single entry within the CV, because a lot of people don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. First of all, on the left-hand side, we've got the time. And it doesn't matter that there's a couple of lines of blank below that, because here you were, and you were employed for what sounds like a summer job for 3 years. Well, that's quite something, because clearly, you did it the first year and they liked you and invited you back the next year. Well, that's worth something. That alone speaks something about you to a potential employer. They think, well, this person's reliable or whatever, right? Okay. So you've got to lay it out like that, the dates when you did a job, and also it's got to be clear that, this job was that thing, and then you'd already previously done a job, delivering papers or working on Dad's farm or something, I don't know, like that. Okay. The second thing to say is, on the right hand side where you're talking about the job, you've got to give an employer, you've got to give where this was, you've got to give your job title, and if the employer is a small one, like this fictional cafe in Harrogate in Yorkshire in Britain, you've got to find a way of summarizing it to someone who's never seen it before, never been to Harrogate. And so, waitress is the job title in trendy cafe. Right. So this wasn't full of dear old ladies with blue rinses. No, this was full of people, young people. Right. Okay. Got the idea. That's the nature of the cafe. And, that takes a long time to think of, exactly 2 words or 3 words that summarize it. Now, if this is some giant firm like HSBC, you don't need to do that. We all know who HSBC are. But if it's a small firm, you've got to describe them. The second thing here is, do not list all the boring jobs you did daily. Every job has lots and lots of boring stuff in it, even this one. But don't list it. We know that a waiter or a waitress has to mop the floor, wipe the tables, draw the curtains, dust things off. You don't need to say all that. We know it already, right? What you need to do is to pull out the skills that you acquired doing this job. What is it that you did not know or have as a skill before you did this job when you were 16 in sort of June 2016 that you now have, and that you have which you bring with you when you walk through the door for an interview or walk through the door and start doing the job? What skills have you got? That's what we're interested in. So don't list all the boring stuff. Do list the interesting things. And that might be something that only happened for a very small amount of time. You might have worked for 3 summers for 10 weeks or 30 weeks. But if in your 3rd year working there, the owner was ill for a week or went on holiday and asked you in emergency to run the cafe, or part of the cafe, maybe you and a finance officer, well, that's fine. That's great. You were trusted to do that. This is management experience. So put that down. Then also, what about the core skills that you've got? Well, if you've been a waiter or a waitress, you can multitask. You can keep angry customers sweet. You've got interpersonal skills. Bring those out. This is the place to tell them. Yes, and although I'm applying for a job in banking or blah, 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 whatever, that's what was useful when I was a waitress or a waiter. Okay. And then you might have some interesting experience. It might have been only for, half a week or something, but, maybe a film crew came to town and they needed coffees or lunches or whatever, well, fine, put that in. That's interesting. That's an interesting story to tell in the interview. If you do get into the interview and someone sort of says, tell us about this Dracula movie that when you were a waitress, bang, you've got 90 seconds to tell them about your time on a film set. That's great, because that enables you to stand out from all the rest. And that's what you need to do in the later stages of applying for a job. Okay. So that's the CV. Now let's look at the cover letter in the next section.